Both frame rails are pushed over that way, and I'll pull down a little bit and over at the same time. So now I've over pulled it about 28 millimeters. I have a Nissan here. This one just gets a bumper replacement and a few parts up front, but this one actually got hit in this bumper reinforcement bar, and it has what we call side sway, which means the frame, both frame rails are shifted over to one side or the other. In this case, they're all pushed over this way from that getting hit. And one of the first signs you could see whenever you wonder if a car has side sways, you could look at the gaps. This gap is real wide, and this one's real tight, and that's from everything moving. When everything moved, it moved this fender out and brought this one in, but the hood stayed stationary because it hinges off the back. And that's why you could that's a first sign that a car has side sway. So, and I also took a few measurements quickly up front whenever they took this one apart. But I'm gonna put this one in clamps, and then I'll make some measurements and make some pulls and pull those frame rails and square everything back up and get everything fitting correctly here on this front end. So they have measurements of where they want these clamps at, and you measure off the center of the rear wheel. And this one's going to be 680 millimeters, which is right about where I have it right here. The front one is going to be 2,035 millimeters, which is right about here. Now I have to match the measuring system to the vehicle so it knows where the vehicle's sitting. So I have to go to 5 points in the center of the car that are undamaged in the center section, and it gives me different attachments. Then that will match the measuring system to the car so it knows where the car is sitting. And then I could come up front and get measurements. My first point is a bolt right up here. You guys probably won't be able to see it. Then my second point is going to be this bolt right here. Now I have 3 more. Now the measuring system is matched to the vehicle, so I can come up here to this front end and see how far over everything is pushed. So we are knocked over about 7 millimeters at these bottom points. It's probably a little more up top where the frame rail is. I'll make some more measurements after I make a couple pulls, but I'm gonna go ahead and roughly pull it over, and then I'll have to pull that back off in order to take some measurements up to here. Alright, I about have this front end all squared up. Headlights are fitting good, hood's fitting good, fenders and everything line up properly with the hood now. So they are going to paint the bumper cover, and we'll get this one finished up and it can go home today. back onto the frame rack, I have a Jeep Patriot here. This one has the same thing as the last one I did. Both frame rails are pushed over that way, and on this one you could actually see the striker for the hood is bent over, which is one sign of a side sway. And then I don't know if you can see this, but it's hitting on the side of the hood latch. It's not hitting straight in, which tells me all of this is pulled over, and it also bent that latch, that striker some as well. So I'm gonna have to do the same thing as the last one I did. I'm going to put this one in clamps and measure it and pull the side sway, both frame rails over and square up the front end. So this first clamp in the rear, they have it 680 millimeters, so right about there. And then the second clamp, they want it 1950 millimeters, right about there. The nice thing about this frame rack is, in order for this car to lower enough to get in these clamps, you almost would have to pull the wheels off or put extensions on here, which they do make. But these ramps just lift off, so I'll just pull these off and then I can lower the car down into the clamps. I might have to pull the front wheel off to get my ram attached to the rack possibly, but at least I won't have to do the other three of them. Now I have the measuring system matched to the vehicle now, so I'm going to come up here to the front and I'm going to measure the front frame rails and see how far off everything is. Now you can see here, this is the right side. This is length, width, and height. So it is 26 millimeters over, about 1 inch. And height is pretty close, length is pretty close. And then on the other side, the left side is 27 millimeters over, so about the same. And it is pushed up about 6 millimeters, which is exactly what I suspected. I am going to grab a hold of this reinforcement bar and I'll pull down a little bit and over at the same time. And I am going to do what is known as a live pull. So I'm going to leave this measuring system on this bolt so I could watch it as it moves. Because in order to get this to stay where I want it, I'm going to have to over pull it, probably 15 to 20 millimeters past. So then when it relaxes, it'll go right where it's supposed to be. So now I've over pulled it about 16 millimeters and over and down about 8 millimeters past where it's supposed to be. So that got my height right where it's supposed to be. I still have about 8 more millimeters I need to get out of the side sway. So I'm going to go a little further. So now I've over pulled it about 28 millimeters. I'm going to see where that puts us. -1, almost perfect. So I'm gonna make a few more measurements, check the other side, make sure everything else is where it's supposed to be, but we're looking good. All right, I got this one all squared up. It measures out perfectly. And I straightened out the striker. You can see it's latching. I'm gonna go ahead and get this one down off the frame rack.